A sudden crash echoed through the silent ruins. Outside the factory gates, the metallic groan of iron being bent and battered filled the air. A horde of cannibals, feral, filthy, and furious, had begun smashing the entrance, their snarling faces pressed against the bars like ravenous beasts. The impact trembled through the ground, and inside, every soul froze in dread. A murmur swept through the group like wildfire. "They found us. The enemy's here." One man sprinted to the rooftop, the wind slicing past him as he leaned over the ledge, and what he saw made his stomach twist. 7. No, 8 of them. Hulking, grotesque cannibals were hammering at the gate with rocks, using raw force to tear their way in. "There's 7 down there," he shouted in disbelief, his voice shaking. 7 cannibals? What do we do now? Before anyone could respond, heavy footsteps echoed behind them. Their leader, Feng, had arrived. He didn't speak at first. He simply listened. And then, without hesitation, turned sharply, heading straight for his daughter. Her eyes met his, filled with worry. "Dad," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Even for you, this fight won't be easy." But Feng didn't answer her, not with words. He turned to the man behind him. His voice, calm but unwavering, carried the weight of command. "Shut the main gate. Don't let a single one of them in. And no one from our side goes out either." The man didn't argue. He simply nodded, understanding that this was more than an order. It was a line drawn in blood. And then Feng moved. In one powerful leap, he hurled himself off the rooftop. "Dad!" his daughter screamed, reaching out as if she could pull him back. "Please be careful." But he was already gone, falling like a meteor, cloaked in silence and steel resolve. He landed with a force that shook the ground. Dust exploded around him. They froze for a split second, and then, grinning like predators, they stepped forward. Well, one of them growled. "This one's mine." Another cackled, bloodlust in his eyes. "Whoever kills him gets to keep the prize." But Feng didn't move. Not yet. A low hum began to rise, dark and pulsating. Around his body, something unnatural began to swirl. A thick, shifting liquid, like living shadow, slithered up his arms and across his chest, enveloping him completely. His figure distorted, his eyes gleamed, and then he changed. Before their eyes, Feng's body twisted and transformed into a monstrous figure, towering, powerful, and horrifyingly silent. The very air around him grew heavy with killing intent. The cannibals who'd been charging in with smug grins now stood paralyzed, their confidence shattered. One of them, trembling, gasped, "So this is his true power?" The other's voice cracked in horror. "Look at him. He's more twisted than we are." For a brief second, silence held the battlefield. The remaining cannibals, blood dripping from their teeth, eyes locked on Feng, hesitated. And then, like a pack of wolves sensing weakness, they surged forward in unison. Feng stood tall, waiting. They rushed in from all sides, their claws raised, mouths open in a grotesque hunger. But the moment they closed within arm's reach of him, Feng moved. With a single sweeping strike, raw power surged through his monstrous body. Cannibals were sliced clean through, their bodies torn apart mid-air. Screams erupted as several of them fell dead on the spot, their torsos split like paper. Others collapsed, wounded, dismembered, barely able to crawl away. Their earlier arrogance was gone, replaced with pure animalistic fear. Feng let out a deafening roar, his voice echoing like thunder across the battleground. But as his cry faded, his knees buckled. His monstrous form trembled, and then He fell, crashing to the ground, dust rising around him. Half of his face was now visible again, barely human. Exhausted, struggling. On the rooftop, everyone stood frozen, staring down at him in stunned disbelief. "We won," someone whispered. "All the cannibals are dead." But then another voice broke the silence, one filled with concern. "Brother Feng, he can barely stand." A man clenched his fists. "Are we really just going to leave him like this?" But the person in front of him shook his head solemnly. "We have no choice. If we go near him now, he might attack us. He's losing control of his own body." Feng's daughter stood in silence, her hands trembling, her eyes locked on her father's collapsed figure. She wanted to speak, but no words would come. All she felt was fear and helplessness. Inside the building, the others began to murmur, tension rising in their voices. "We can't just stand here. If we don't help him now, Feng will die." Hearing their resolve, her daughter's eyes welled with emotion. The sight of strangers willing to risk their lives for her father, despite his terrifying state, shattered her hesitation. Something inside her. She could barely hold back her tears. Then the man Feng had originally ordered, "Do not let anyone go outside," stepped forward. He looked around at the unity in everyone's faces, and for the first time, he wavered. "If all of you truly want to go out there and help Feng, then so be it." And just like that, the gates opened. One by one, the people began rushing towards Feng. From the ground, Feng raised his head, his voice ragged and urgent. "What are you doing? Get back inside now!" But they didn't listen. They ran past him, charging at the few cannibals still twitching and breathing. Weapons raised, shouts echoing, they struck with everything they had, ending every last one of them. And then, one by one, they dragged the corpses to Feng. They tossed them near his feet, and Feng started devouring them, ripping into their flesh piece by piece. His monstrous hunger overtook him. His breathing slowed. His wounds began to close. The more he ate, the more strength returned to him. Those watching from a distance were frozen in disbelief. The sight was horrifying. And then, without warning, more cannibals appeared. Their monstrous forms emerged from the shadows, drawn by the scent of blood and battle. The leader among them narrowed his eyes at Feng's broken figure and sneered. "Why does this monster look so beat up?" But then his gaze drifted to the humans nearby, tired, blood-stained, wounded, but standing. And suddenly, the cannibal leader's lips curled into a grin. "How lucky we are! Some of our brothers died, but they've gifted us with this beautiful moment." Their joy, however, didn't last long, because as more and more cannibals appeared, the humans began to panic. One of them gasped, "There are more of them, even more than before." Another whispered, "What do we do now?" But even in the face of fear, some of them stepped forward, weapons shaking in their hands. One voice rang out among them, "Brother Feng hasn't recovered yet. He's in no shape to fight." Another replied, steady and firm, "Then it's our turn now, to protect him and ourselves." The scene shifts. Far from the chaos, in the shadow of a dying sun, our hero and his group approach the outskirts of the battlefield. The wind carried the scent of blood, and something deeper, something primal hung heavy in the air. With every step the tension grew. The silence was too sharp, too unnatural. Our hero narrowed his eyes, sensing the shift. His voice was low, calm, but carried an edge of certainty. "I can tell. The people you mentioned aren't normal. There are clearly fewer cannibals the further north we go from the western outskirts." The old man walking beside him let out a soft, knowing chuckle. "That's it. I remember now. This is the place I was talking about. We're almost there, just a little further." But before the last word could leave his lips, gunfire, a sharp crack split the air. The sound of gunshots echoed across the ruins. The old man froze. "Gunfire?" Our hero's lips curled into a half smile. "We're close, just a few kilometers away." And in the very next heartbeat, the scene shattered into carnage. Back at the battleground, the struggle had only intensified. Bodies lay torn, some split at the torso, others with heads brutally severed. Blood painted the dirt red. Feng's daughter, her eyes wild with rage and grief, raised her weapon with shaking hands. She pulled the trigger over and over, bullets tearing into the cannibals as she screamed, "I'll fight you all until my last breath." But fate wasn't kind. From behind, one of the cannibals lunged at her. In a brutal flash, it grabbed her weapon and tore it from her hands, hurling it across the rubble. She gasped, but it was too late. The creature sneered, its claws reaching for her, its grip tightening with cruel amusement. And just as his hand closed in on her, a monstrous blur struck. Feng, with a roar, he slammed into the cannibal like a thunderclap. The impact was so violent that his daughter was thrown into the air, landing hard across the debris-strewn ground. She winced, clutching her arm, now cut and bruised. The sheer force of her father's attack left everyone stunned. Even the cannibals stepped back, shaken. One of them whispered in horror, "He's back! That monster is ready to fight again!" Another snarled, "Then let's finish him before he fully recovers." With guttural roars, they surged forward, every last one of them. Feng's daughter, struggling to sit up, watched the horde close in around her father. Fear gripped her heart. "Dad!" Before she could do anything, one of the fighters grabbed her, pulling her back towards safety. "We can't stay here. Come with me. We have to get inside." Tears streaked her face, but she nodded. Meanwhile, Feng stood alone, a wall of death charging at him, claws and teeth bared. And then out of nowhere, a giant boulder came crashing down from above, slamming into the attacking cannibals with terrifying fanfare. Bones shattered. Two of them were instantly crushed, their bodies split in half beneath the weight of the falling stone. Everyone froze, eyes darted to the sky. Hearts thundered. What was that? Where did it come from? And then they saw him, their hero. Standing tall at the edge of the broken path, his presence crackling with fury and purpose, was the one who had hurled that massive stone with nothing but sheer power. This video ends. If you guys want to see the next part, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel.